Hello, it's 9 o'clock and here is Fatima. You know what we are here for? To get the news with the extra touch. And tonight, there is really the extra touch to the news. Of course, today was the big day for Nigeria's political development and judicial integrity as Nigerians got the verdict of the 5-member panel on who won the 2019 presidential election. We have the story and reactions. Also today, the Federal Executive Council met for the first time in this next-level agenda government. What a coincidence with the judgment, you might say. Now, there are the two big ones for tonight. But trust me, there is more in the kitty and I can't wait to share it with you. There is empowerment, health, business, sports, and lots more. Of course, you know the taste of the pudding is in the eating. So let's get it on. I am Fatima Umar Buba and this is News Extra. You're welcome. The Presidential Election Petition Tribunal has dismissed the petition filed by ATIKU and the People's Democratic Party, PDP, challenging the February 23rd election of President Muhammadu Buhari. The 5-man panel, headed by Justice Mohammed Garba, in a unanimous judgment dissolved all issues in favor of President Buhari. All Progressives Congress APC and the Independent National Electoral Commission INEC, Vera Chumuba, has more.
In a 9-hour painstaking judgment of the Presidential Election Court, the court first resolved all preliminary applications before delving into the substantive issues. The 5 grounds of petition include non-qualification and false information, non-election by majority of lawful vote cast, corrupt practices, and non-compliance with the Electoral Act. The court resolved all issues in favor of President Buhari, APC, and INEC. On the issue of non-qualification and false information, the court held that President Buhari is not only qualified, but eminently qualified to run for the presidency of the country, as contained in Form 199A, which showed how he obtained his WAEC certificate in 1961 with 5 credits in relevant subjects. On the issue of non-majority of lawful vote cast, the court held that the petitioners failed to prove the allegations of irregularities in any of the states where the alleged overvoting took place or presented documents to prove the allegation. Non-compliance with the Electoral Act was also another issue raised, but the court said the Electoral Act made no provision for electronic conduct of elections, collation and transmission of results at all levels in Nigeria. The chairman of the panel, Justice Mohammed Garba, however, commended the brilliance exhibited by the counsel in their written addresses. In Abuja, Vera Chumuba, NTA News.
In the meantime, the All Progressives Congress hails the judgment of the 2019 Presidential Election Petition Tribunal, dismissing in its entirety the petition filed by the People's Democratic Party and its presidential candidate, Atiku Abubakar. Supporters of the party who spoke to NTA say the judgment in favor of President Muhammadu Buhari is well-deserved.
On all the grounds that were canvassed upon today, the tribunal found none of them worthy enough to derail the election. But the tribunal dismissed in its entirety the entire petition of the PDP, so we're glad.
Judgment has been delivered in our favor, and we are glad. The president that we have is a man of integrity. If he knew he didn't do it, he didn't make it, he wouldn't even have bothered, but he knew, he knows what he has. We know what we have. We had good market, we sold it, and we won.
We all know this is a people-oriented government, and again, I would like to congratulate the President Muhammadu Buhari. It's a win for Nigerians, it's a win for Nigeria, and it's also a win for the President. We can only wish him well, and Nigerians in the diaspora that I do represent in Nigeria also wish him well, and we're looking to good things that this government will be doing in the next couple of years.
You can see the way we're jubilating. Everybody is jubilating because today is the day, it's a historic day in the history of Nigerian democracy. President Muhammadu Buhari he assured Nigeria that he's going to give the best and you should also, we tell the Nigerian they should help him in prayer so that he will achieve what he wants to achieve.
And more reaction. A cross-section of Nigerians have described the victory of President Muhammadu Buhari at Presidential Election Petition Tribunal as democracy in action, and saluting the courage of the tribunal's panel members for the judgment, which they say or describe as a landmark. Timothy Yusuf caught up with some of them.
First of all, congratulations to His Excellency, Mr. President. Congratulations to the All Progressives Congress. Congratulations to Nigerians. And above all, congratulations to the Nigerian judiciary, because in the analysis of all the issues and in the transparency of delivery of all the entire judgment, every person listened to it and the judiciary acquitted itself excellently. One thing I would want Nigerians to take is that the entire judgment turned on the Electoral Act. And so this is a challenge to the National Assembly, that let them listen and take the judgment as it is, and then listen to all the issues that the judges analyzed, and then fill the gap and make a very comprehensive one-volume Electoral Act for Nigeria.
It's a judgment that is well considered. It's a landmark judgment. They took everything into consideration. At least one thing that is clear is that this judgment have put to rest the promotion of hype, the promotion of sensationalism and sentiment in the social media.
We feel good. We feel happy. We Nigerian women and grassroots, we are very happy with that today's judgment. We are very happy. We thank God for that. Just next level, continue.
It is a victory for democracy, that is to enrich the democratic process. The issue of certificate have been settled. There will be no issue of with this judgment. It has clearly give a lot of eye-opening into Nigerian law and to enrich the process.
Now, on our earlier news telecast, we had in the studio a senior advocate of Nigeria, Olushola Oke, who gave more insights on the verdict of the 2019 Presidential Election Petition Court. Here are excerpts from the interview.
So what's your take on the verdict of the Presidential Election Petition Court, sir?
Well, let me start by congratulating everybody. We've come to the end of a very tortuous journey. I congratulate the petitioners for taking the path of law in not encouraging their members to resort to violence. I also congratulate Mr. President for the victory at the tribunal. The result didn't come to me as a surprise, because the very weighty, serious criminal allegations raised by the petitioners, from the way their evidence was front-loaded, from the caliber of witnesses they called, and from their failure to call sufficient evidence and dumping all the documents on the court, it was clear to me that based on the electoral jurisprudence in Nigeria today, that the petition was bound to fail. But I want to commend the meticulous manner the justices went through the evidence, examined all the documents, and the issue of card reader and transmission, all the allegations are raised, especially the criminal allegations, accusing the army, the police, who had neither made the party, or was anybody called to give evidence instead of the allegations. I believe we need to commend. Our judiciary is coming up stronger, and the law on election is also developing. I believe that this is also an authority for all other petitioners, that when you make allegations, you must call witnesses to prove them. The issue of cyber raised by the petitioners, INEC denied from day one that they don't have such a cyber, and they appealed to the Supreme Court, which also affirmed the position of the Court of Appeal, that the allegation of cyber cannot be established. So I believe very strongly that this judgment is a well-considered judgment. All the principles of law examined are very sound, and they constitute a good authority that when you make criminal allegations, you must join the parties, you must provide evidence, and when you allege that elections are not well conducted at the units, you cannot make allegations in over 500 units, and you're calling only 60 witnesses, out of which there are only 5 polling unit agents to establish such allegations.
But in your own opinion, for instance, are there areas you feel the court must have omitted, in your view?
The court went through every piece of evidence put before the court and examined the petition meticulously, and the defense put forward. The truth of the matter is that the allegation was not proved in any manner. All the grounds, such as corrupt practices, non-compliance, falsification of result, none was established by any credible evidence. I think the justices did a good job on the petition.
So what
and from the look of the petitioners, it's like they were also convinced that justice was done to their petition.
So what does this portend for the future of the country? What do you think, moving forward, how do you think this will play out in Nigeria? Well, moving forward is that, yes, there are areas where INEC really needs to still improve, but petitioners should also learn one lesson from this judgment, that you do not proceed to court on emotion. Most of the allegations were based on the emotion of the candidate and the counsel who were asked to prosecute the petition. Election petitions, especially when it involves issues at the grassroots, at the polling unit, is different from when you are talking about collation. If you are complaining about collation, you could call evidence from the collation centers. But when you are alleging that there was no accreditation, there was inflation of votes, voters were harassed, they were embarrassed, there was inducement by way of bribery and corruption. These are allegations that you cannot prove by merely dumping election documents on the court. You must be willing to call your witnesses from the units. But one observation I also make is that the way our electoral law is today, it's going to be difficult for a petitioner to establish allegations given the shortage of time. For instance, under the electoral law, a petitioner has only 14 days. A petitioner who is alleging infractions in over 1,000 units, it's going to be difficult, even within 6 months, to be able to establish the allegation. I believe that one lesson we are taking away from this petition is that there may be the need to review the Constitution and the electoral to give more time to prosecution of election petitions. So what will your advice be for all parties, especially the opposition at this time?
My take is that this is a thoroughly considered judgment, and that we do not need to give Mr. President any further distraction. Parties will accept the outcome of this verdict, and there will be no need to pursue further appeal on it, so that all of us can come together. I listened to the statement issued by Mr. President shortly, inviting all aggrieved individuals who went to ventilate their grievances at the tribunal to join hands with him to move Nigeria forward. 4 years long, but before you know it, in another 2 years, another round of election activities will start. So I call on the petitioner, especially the candidate of PDP, not to consider the option of going on appeal, so that we can put this one behind us and look forward to a Nigeria that is stable, that is prosperous, that is economically viable, and that in another 4 years there will be opportunity for him as an individual. He's not still too old to contest if he wants to do so. That's my appeal to everybody concerned.
Many
and
thanks.
Also appeal to Mr. President in the manner of this appeal he has made. He should also reach out to the opposition so that Nigeria can make progress. There are too many things confronting Nigeria, so we cannot allow this election petition to continue to distract us.
Thank you very much, Olushola Oke, there for your reactions. Now, eminent Nigerians have begun to react to the judgment of the Presidential Election Petition Court, which resolved all the issues in favor of President Muhammadu Buhari and the 2 other respondents. The political stakeholders described the verdict as a welcome development. Dele Atumbi reports.
The Court of Appeal venue of the Presidential Election Petition Court was jam-packed by counsel on the matter, politicians and government functionaries. Having raised 5 issues, the petitioners pleaded with the court to declare the candidate ATIKU Abubakar the duly elected president. Having painstakingly taken a critical look at all the issues raised by the petitioners, the court resolved all the issues against them in favor of the respondents. This victory at the level of the judiciary made the respondents and their supporters to go agog.
Rather resort to self-help in choosing to submit to the judicial process to review their grievances. And they've had ample opportunity to lay their allegations, and they've had opportunity to speak to prove those allegations. We've had opportunity to question those allegations, and the court have arrived at the decision to the effect that the allegations were unfounded. And if you're in my shoes, you don't need to ask me how I feel. But I think also very important for us as a party is that in the course of this trial, there were clear attempts to throw mud at the person and the integrity of the president when people question his claim to whether or not he went to secondary school and whether or not Muhammadu Buhari is the same as Muhammad and whether or not he swore to false affidavit. Now, these are issues that impinges on the integrity of the president. Now, those who made those allegations have had opportunity to prove them. And as the court has found out, they were not able to prove them. And the court, listening to the lead judgment, said, our president is not just qualified, he's eminently qualified.
Presidential Election Tribunal have settled the election petition and have found that the mandate given to President Muhammadu Buhari and his vice president by Nigerians have been upheld by the court. So this will give the much needed boost so that the president will continue to deliver on electoral promises and continue to build a Nigeria that works for all.
We thank Almighty God for the judgment. It's analytical. And we thank Almighty God for giving them the wisdom.
First of all, let me congratulate millions and millions of Nigerians who supported us in the course of this petition. Encouraged us, and we are happy about it. They energized us. We are very, very happy about it.
President Muhammadu Buhari, as a respondent in all the 4 petitions which was laid before the Presidential Election Petition Court, recorded victory in 2, and 2 of the petitions were voluntarily withdrawn by the petitioners. The petitioners before the court at its inception were African Action Congress, People's Democratic Movement, Hope Democratic Party, and the People's Democratic Party. This verdict brings to a close all the petitions filed before the Presidential Election Petition Court. In Abuja, Dele Atumbi, NTA News.
Reactions to the PEPC judgment there. I can now tell you without fear of contradiction that the next level agenda of President Muhammadu Buhari is airborne with the maiden edition of the Executive Council meeting, and the President is reassuring Nigerians that the next level Federal Executive Council would not fail in its responsibility of guaranteeing their safety, security and prosperity. He made the promise while addressing members of the council before the commencement of their maiden meeting. The president insists that selfless service to the nation and to humanity must remain the guiding principle. State House correspondent Adamu Sambo has the details.
Nigeria's highest policy decision-making body, the Executive Council of the Federation, meeting for the first time since reconstitution after the inauguration of the Buhari presidency for a second term in office. It is made up of 43 members, the largest since the rebirth of democracy in 1999. 14 of them returnees from the last tenure, while the remaining 29 are fresh appointees. For the new cabinet members, President Muhammadu Buhari said the maiden meeting provides them an opportunity to exchange ideas and perfect the administration's stated policy objectives that will positively impact Nigerians.
The majority of Nigerians who voted for us gave us a clear mandate. A, to enhance the security of lives and property across the entire country. B, to create a diversified and inclusive economy
that will bring prosperity to all and see to install governance and accountability in our systems and processes, thereby eliminating corruption. Therefore, all ideas and projects that will contribute to achieving these goals shall be foremost in our deliberations. We must not fail them.
The President used the forum to explain that the creation of new ministries as well as the restructuring of some of their functions was a deliberate attempt at enhancing effective service delivery in the country.
For example, to achieve our goal of economic diversification and inclusive growth, we merged the Ministry of Finance with that of Budget and National Planning. We also created a Ministry for Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development to fully institutionalize our various interventions that support some of the poorest and most distressed citizens of our country. Furthermore, we split the Ministry of Power, Works and Housing and Ministry of Transportation and Aviation to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of our infrastructure delivery programs and projects.
The Ministry of Police Affairs, he said, was re-established to coordinate efforts at developing and implementing strategies that will enhance Nigeria's internal security in synergy with other security and intelligence agencies, as well as support the re-establishment of civil authority in liberated areas of the Northeast. President Buhari said the Ministry of Special Duties and Intergovernmental Affairs, on the other hand, will manage key projects and initiatives of the presidency, as well as coordinate multi-agency and interministerial functions.
We must work in harmony with each other. Communication and teamwork are the hallmarks of success. Keep in mind the oath you took in this very room 3 weeks ago. As a government, our focus must remain in that of selfless service.
For the 14 returning ministers, President Muhammadu Buhari, for the opt-in term, explained that their reappointment was based on merit. During the first term, he said they executed their mandate diligently and in a patriotic manner, which according to him must not only be sustained, but improved upon in driving the next level agenda. The President therefore instructed the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Boss Mustafa, also a returnee, to draft a schedule of responsibilities for both the substantive ministers and ministers of state for his review and final approval. From the State House, Adamu Sambu, NTA News.
Many thanks, Adamu, for that. More reactions to the Presidential Election Court judgment when we return. Please stay with us.
Besides aggressive support to the military and other security forces, the administration of Professor Babagana Umar Zulum in Borno State has within 100 days procured 160 brand new surveillance vehicles distributed to volunteers in the civilian JTF, hunters and vigilantes, helping to fight Boko Haram across the 27 local government areas. Governor Zulum also increased monthly allowances and introduced electronic payments to the volunteers, in addition to signing into law a legislation on their existence and activity. Relatedly, Zulum's administration also established and equipped agro rangers meant to secure farmlands and farmers towards food security and the restoration of livelihoods in post-conflict communities.
Bayes University is a fully licensed university operating since 2011 and has grown to have 32 accredited programs in 6 faculties. This includes computer and applied sciences, management and social sciences, engineering, environmental sciences, law, and basic medical sciences. The university also offers postgraduate programs and foundation courses in a conducive learning environment with modern teaching facilities and high-quality national and international staff. Bayes University graduates have either progressed into respectable career positions or have obtained postgraduate degrees from different parts of the world with distinctions. Call or visit www.bayesuniversity.edu.ng. Bayes University, Abuja. Learn to live.
I love the new look of my favorite Nivea black and white deodorant. Same reliable double protection against sweat and against stains. No white marks on black and no yellow stains on my white clothes. Proven 48-hour protection with the new look black and white deodorant from Nivea.
No challenge can stop us, oh Lord, and we are the brightest. No darkness can blind us. We are the strongest.
Malta Guinness is packed with B vitamins to fuel your greatness.
Hello?
Hello, Kenny.
You feel make 10 tops for this time next week? Sharp.
Yes, sir, but...
Okay, talk later.
You get money now.
Hurry up!
My pikin, how you doing?
Papa, I say make I remind you about that loan.
Loan, I beg.
Hello, Papa?
Your move. Hello, sister of life.
I won't remind you of that loan. Hello?
The number cannot be reached now.
Hello, Oga. Your clothes already.
Are you an entrepreneur looking for financing to grow your business? Here's good news. Development Bank of Nigeria now provides sustainable financing through commercial banks, microfinance banks, and other financial institutions with repayment terms of up to 10 years. Please do remember, pay back your loan in good time will give you access to more loans.
Development Bank of Nigeria. Financing sustainable growth.
Why keep mixing things when you can have all in one? New Mr. Muscle All-Purpose Cleaner. Have the cleaning power. So you can easily dance right through a variety of tough messes, like spills and stains, grease and soap scum, and get back to the things you love. New Mr. Muscle All-Purpose Cleaner. Get your power in one. SC Johnson, a family company.
Introducing an opportunity of a lifetime for 10 lucky winners. Are you creative? Are you bursting with genius, unique and trailblazing ideas in any of art, dance, theater, music, hands and crafts, film and entertainment, fashion and design, culture, architecture, new media and ICT? Does your idea contribute to any of the 9 federal government priority areas? Then register to be a part of the second edition of the National Youth Entrepreneurship Empowerment Summit for Creatives. How to participate? Wow our judges in a 1-minute video showcasing your innovative solution in the most creative way. Upload on social media and use the relevant hashtags. Follow and tag at NYEE Summit. And you can be one of 10 lucky winners of 1 million naira each. Entries close on Friday, 13th September.
Welcome back. The Federal Executive Council has approved the medium-term expenditure framework and fiscal strategy paper for the year 2020 to 2022. The document projects 10.07 trillion naira as budget size for the 2020 fiscal year. The Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Xenophobia, announced this after the maiden meeting of the Council in the last lap of the Buhari presidency. The State House correspondent Adamu Sambo reports on this and other resolutions adopted.
The meeting, presided over by President Muhammadu Buhari, lasted over 7 hours, considering the various memoranda submitted by members as part of efforts to take Nigeria to the next level. One of those approved is the medium-term expenditure framework and fiscal strategy paper designed to guide the nation's developmental projects for the 2020 fiscal year. Finance, Budget and National Planning Minister Zainab Ahmed reported to Council that despite the global economic recovery looking sluggish, Nigerian economy has gained momentum.
We have seen today 9 quarters of consecutive GDP growth,
and the annual growth has increased from 0.82% in 2017 to 2.02% in the first half of 2019. Headline inflation has peaked from 18.72% in January 2017 to a low of 11.02% in July 2019. We've also seen positive accretion to the foreign reserves, and this has been sustained, rising from 23.81 billion in September 2016 to 43.7 billion by August 2019.
The government, she said, has committed to intensifying efforts at enhancing the non-oil sector-driven growth, as well as continuing with the implementation of the ongoing financial management reforms. Consequently, the Council has approved $55 as oil price benchmark, oil production of 2.18 million barrels per day, an exchange rate of 305 naira to a dollar, 10.1% average inflation, and nominal GDP for the country at 122.75 trillion. In addition to these key parameters to be proposed to the National Assembly for approval, the meeting also agreed to start the process towards increasing the value-added tax rate from 5 to 7.2%.
This is important because the states, you know that the federal government only retains 15% of the VAT, 85% is actually for the states and the local governments. And the states need additional revenue to be able to meet the obligations of the minimum wage.
Minister of State for Works and Housing, Abubakar Aliyu, on his part, announced the approval of the Council for the award of 14 road projects across the country towards addressing the infrastructure deficit. The projects, which include the construction and rehabilitation of roads and bridges as arteries of development, are expected to gulp nearly 200 billion naira.
Construction of Kontagora Bangi Road in Niger State at the cost of 20,390 million naira. Rehabilitation of 2 outstanding sections of Oba Nnewi Arondizugu Okigwe Road in Imo State, Imo and Anambra State, in the sum of 12,752,627,088 naira 89 kobo.
Also approved is the revised estimate of the total cost of the rehabilitation of Itape-Ajaguta rail line and the construction of 12 station buildings, as well as some track works.
The contract was awarded at $122 million, but requested for a total of 56 million additional works, now bringing the contract of Itape to Warri to a total of $478.7 million.
Additional works of $374 million with another variation of $282 million, he also said, were approved for Lagos-Ibadan rail project with extension to the Lagos Port Complex in Apapa. From the State House, Adamu Sambo, NTA News.
Let's now take you back to the political scene. The People's Democratic Party says it is heading to the Supreme Court in the party's reaction to the ruling of the Presidential Election Petition Court. The party asked Nigerians to remain calm and not to lose hope.
Judgment has been given. We have a legal team. The legal team is going to study the judgment and advise us on the next step to take. So that's why we have been here for 9 hours.
And to talk more on the judgment, we have Daniel Bwala. He is a legal practitioner. He's here with me. Good to have you on News Extra.
Thank you for having me.
Well, were you in court today?
No, I was not in court, but I followed through everything.
Okay. So the court just, validated the 2019 general election and uphold President Buhari's victory. How can you analyze that?
Well, right from the beginning, the provision of Section 138 of the Electoral Act is quite clear about the kind of petition you can bring to court. And PDP had depended on subsection 1, 2, and 3, which is to show, number one, that the president was not qualified at the time of election, and they rest the argument of qualification around his certificate. And thankfully, the judgment of the court today is clear about that. The provision of section 131 of the Constitution regarding qualification, it says somebody who is vying for the position of the president must have shown that he has undergone education to the level of school certificate. And the court held that if there was no certificate, how come, as part of the requirement for recruitment in the army, as evidence in their document, it showed that he was qualified. So, and especially because the president also attached his CV and other qualification, the court went further to say that the president is even overqualified. So they failed in that breath. Then subsection 2, which shows that the election was, that the person who was elected was marred with irregularity. So they were trying to suggest that there was violence, in different parts of the country. That also fell on the judgment of the court. As regarding the server and the card reader, they were contradictory in their argument. In one breath, they would say the card reader failed in most part of the country. In another breath, they would say they scored the highest number and they could attest to that through the card reader. So the inconsistency didn't help them. So in a nutshell, the court, on every phase of the application and the petition itself, the court struck out the petition on the ground that the president was qualified at the time of election. The president scored the highest vote, and the president is legally the winner of that election.
Well, it's obvious that we're seeing the next stage of the electoral process, which is the courts. Now, how valuable is this to the development of our democracy? Well,
the democracy thrives where there is rule of law and where parties can ventilate their argument through the regular court, rather than settling dispute on the street or settling dispute through violence. And in this case, confidence must be developed in our judicial system, which was the reason why, in the first place, PDP went to the court. And like I was saying today elsewhere, that even when they raise spurious allegation against the competence of Honorable Justice Bukachua, the president of the Court of Appeal, to preside over the matter, in the ruling of the Court of Appeal, they held that it was valid and she could sit. But she still went ahead and recused herself. So they virtually asked for everything, including flies and mosquitoes and everything, all in a bid to establish their case. But in a democracy, they must be allowed to ventilate their case, and the court has so ruled today that the president is the legitimate winner of the 2019. Now, still under the principle of democracy, they can go to the Supreme Court. But the fact is, when you go to the Supreme Court, what cannot change are the evidence you have adduced at the Presidential Tribunal, which is like a trial court. For example, their star witness, Chidoka, tried to establish a particular argument by tendering the document of a third party, which in law we call it hearsay. So if you go to the Supreme Court...
What would you say, how would you react to them going to the Supreme Court now, since you've just mentioned it?
I mean, we welcome them. They lost at the election, they lost at the tribunal, they are likely to lose at the Supreme Court. So it is their right to go to the Supreme Court, and we'll wait for them. But the most important thing is, like in the news when they were saying they're asking Nigerians to be calm. Nigerians are rejoicing. There's no apathy or any crisis anywhere.
Okay, thank you very much, Daniel Bwala, for coming on News Extra. And yes, that was Daniel Bwala. He is a legal practitioner talking on today's judgment. Now, the Minister of Labour and Employment, Chris Ngige, says the federal government is determined to resolve the delay affecting the conclusion of the negotiation of consequential adjustment over the new national minimum wage. He stated this at a media parley in Abuja.
It is the determination of Mr. President and this administration that we fast-track everything about the consequential adjustment. I have just received a letter, correspondence from the Chief of Staff to the President, and we are putting a deadline to that negotiation. We are fast-tracking it because the government will also want to put in place a presidential committee on salaries and allowances that will be in situ and be able to take requests after this consequential adjustment. But before then, that same committee will appraise the level of work or quantum of workload, and evaluate all cadres of work and come out with salaries and allowances that will be commensurate with each.
In another development, the Ministry of Labour, through its agency, has started a safe workplace intervention program by distributing safety equipment to employers as part of efforts to reduce injury and death at workplace. The initiative by the government is to encourage employers to ensure conducive environment is provided for higher productivity. And President Muhammadu Buhari has described his victory at the Presidential Election Petition Tribunal as a victory for Nigerians who trooped out to overwhelmingly elect him for a second term. The president, in a statement by his special advisor on media and publicity, Femi Adesina, dedicates the victory to God and to Nigerians, while also commending the judiciary for dispensing justice without fear or favor. President Buhari extends a hand of fellowship to those who had felt aggrieved at the outcome of the election and went to court, noting that it was within their democratic rights. He notes, however, that with the pronouncement of the judiciary, it is time for the country to move forward as one cohesive body, putting behind all bickering and potential distractions over an election in which Nigerians spoke clearly and resoundly. And delegates from over 120 countries attending the ongoing United Nations World Tourism Organization's 23rd General Assembly have unanimously adopted a comprehensive global roadmap for a sustainable growth and development of the tourism sector in Russia. Anthony Fossen reports.
The roadmap endorsed by the General Assembly has the capacity to address some of the SDG targets in the area of eradicating poverty, fighting inequality and injustice, as well as solve climate change challenges. The UNWTO Secretary General Zurab Pololikashvili, in his address, said the roadmap is a deliberate policy document designed to fit into any society around the world to help drive the process in attaining a global standard acceptable to all.
Our job is to see to it that tourism, along with bringing a maximum of benefits to the host country, should do so with minimum impact on the environment and should develop in a sustainable and inclusive way.
Speakers from the different parts of the world whose nations have put tourism in the front burner as a revenue earner made inputs on how to make the sector globally friendly as well as attractive to would-be tourists. While emphasis was placed on youth and women empowerment, it keyed into the federal government of Nigeria's current plans to hold a summit on the role of youth and women in tourism as part of efforts to harness their talents and develop the sector.
It further confirms that Nigeria is on the right path and that we're on track to actually make tourism a key driver in our economic development and social equation. The administration of Muhammadu Buhari has consistently put its emphasis on these issues. Between 2015 and 2019, we dedicated an unprecedented 27% of the capital of our budget on capital projects. We're talking about roads, we're talking about infrastructure. You also remember that in the area of connectivity, we have actually probably invested more in airports than any other administration.
Lai Mohammed maintained that Nigeria will leverage on its comparative advantage.
When you look at youth and women, of course, the most vibrant industries in the creative industry in Nigeria, which is music and the film industry, you can see that it is populated by youth. And again, what we've done in this industry is to include them in the pioneer status so that they can be entitled to, tax relief. So overall, I'm very glad that Nigeria is on the right track in making tourism, a key driver in economic development, and everything that you need to push, tourism forward. That's what we are doing.
The General Assembly is the supreme organ of the United Nations World Tourism Organization. Following the endorsement of the roadmap at this General Assembly, It is expected that member nations who are signatory to the United Nations World Tourism Organization will go back home and implement this policy to ensure that tourism is developed to its fullest capacity. From St. Petersburg and the Republic of Russia, Anthony Forson, NTA News.
And back home, Vice President Yemi Osinbajo says the federal government will continue to collaborate with state governments in fighting the menace of insurgency, banditry, and all forms of criminal tendencies across the country for the overall growth and development of the nation. Usman Mukhtar reports that this was while the Vice President was inaugurating patrol vehicles and motorcycles procured by Adamawa State Government for security agencies in the state.
Aside pockets of violence which occasionally recorded in some parts affected by insurgents, Adamawa State has been bedeviled with cases of kidnapping and Shila boys who terrorize citizens. To respond to the menace, immediately after coming on board, Governor Ahmadu Umaru Fintri's administration gave more attention on security of the people, which gave birth to the purchase of 60 patrol vehicles and 50 motorcycles to enhance security operations. Inaugurating the operational vehicles, Vice President Yemi Osinbajo describes as right step taken by the government to fight security challenges.
We all, of course, recognize how important security is, especially today.
Governor Ahmadu Umaru Fintiri said his administration is ever ready to ensure the security of lives and property of its citizenry.
The launch of the security support vehicles under Operation Farauta, which my government initiated to tackle all forms of criminality.
Vice President also interacted with traditional rulers as part of his working visit to the state, where he acknowledges the importance of the institution in maintaining peace and order in the society. In Yola, Usman Mukhtar, NTA News.
Thank you, Usman. And the Federal High Court sitting in Lagos has commended parties involved in the out-of-court settlement in the suit filed against the former Cross River State Governor Donald Duke by the United Bank for Africa and Assets Management Company of Nigeria, AMCON, in the sum of a 537 million naira debt. The presiding judge, Justice Nicholas Owegbu, gave the commendation when the parties reported to the court the outcome of the out-of-court settlement in Lagos. Tunde Saiki reports.
The suit before the court against the defendants, an ex parte application by AMCON and UBA in the sum of 537,334,360 naira 77 kobo. At the resumption of proceedings, counsel to the former governor told the court that his client has approached AMCON with a view to settling the matter out of court. This was confirmed by AMCON counsel.
The court today has made its judgment, and furthermore to also say that the defendants have met their obligations and they have paid the agreed reduced amount, and the matter is now over.
One thing is clear, you have defendants, in particular the second and third defendants, who are people who honor their words and their obligations to duty and to the state. And that has paid out. Even the court was pleased.
It will be recalled that the defendants in the suit, Stone Edge Investment Limited, Mr. Donald Duke, and Mrs. Owanari Bob Manuel Duke, were sued by AMCON and UBA, praying the court for an order of interim attachment, possession and custody of the property located at number 3 Temple Road, Ikoyi, Lagos, having been used as a mortgage by the defendants as collateral in securing a loan. In Lagos, Tunde Saiki, NTA News.
In another development, the Federal High Court sitting in Lagos has granted the final forfeiture of $2,140 million recovered from former Minister of Petroleum Resources, Desani Alison Madueke, to the federal government. Justice Innocent Owegbu gave this ruling after disclosing his facts on the case based on the council's submissions. Abolori Ogbara has the report.
At the Federal High Court sitting in Lagos, Justice Innocent Owebo disclosed that the ex parte application filed by Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, to forfeit the jewelries worth $40 million belonging to the former Minister of Petroleum Resources, Diezani Alisi Madueke, is said to be proceeds of some unlawful acts, fraud and other illicit means. Justice Owebo also stated that the council's submission was on issue of whether the acquired jewelries were gifts. And if that is the case, where were they given? And if not, respondents should provide evidence why the property should not be forfeited to the federal government.
It's not that we didn't show cause, it's that we chose a different approach. And the court decided that our approach was not in keeping with the law. And that's how it turned out.
The respondent did not prove to the court and not satisfy the court as to how she acquired the property.
The submissions by the council also show that Diezani was appointed Minister of Petroleum Resources in April 2010, and findings by the EFCC revealed that Diezani started acquiring the jewelries in 2012 from various jewelry stores. Justice Owebo, in his ruling, said the respondent failed to prove the charges against her beyond reasonable doubt. He, however, ordered for the final forfeiture of the property. In Lagos, Abolore Ogbara, NT News.
To other stories now, diversity is a strong link for socio-economic development, and using it effectively will bring about the much-needed change in the country. Experts at the African Conference on Peace, Diversity and Education, put together by the Institute for Peace and Conflict Resolution and the University of Bradford, believes that Nigeria has all it takes to strengthen and foster cohesion as well as productivity. Hamman Jabani reports.
It is said that cultural diversity is important because country, workplaces and schools increasingly consist of various cultural, racial and ethnic groups, and people can learn from one another. But first, there is the need to have a level of understanding about each other, as this brings about sustainable peace. This platform is set to achieve all this, as well as afford stakeholders the opportunity to review and reassess pathways for constructive management of Africa's rich diversity.
Diversity itself is not a bad thing, but it's just that we tend to mismanage it.
Diversity is an enormous form of strength, but it can be very difficult. It can lead to conflict, it can lead to disagreements, it can lead to conflict, it can lead to people rejecting other people. So we need to know how to manage our diversity.
Whatever the identity markers, whether they're religion or they're race or there are some other markers, I think it's important that we learn to harness our diversity to advance our common humanity.
The conference with the theme Achieving Sustainable Peace Through Diversity Managed and Peace Education in Africa will help in the understanding of different perspectives within the continent, examine the impact of diversity mismanagement to peace, security, development of Africa, and build bridges to trust, respect, and diversity management. Hamman Jabani, NTA News.
Sure, this is coming at the right time. Decline of the official legislative reporting skills by the legislative supporting staff at both states and national levels must be addressed for Nigeria to achieve its targeted democratic goals. This was a remark by the Director General of the National Institute for Legislative and Democratic Studies, Abubakar Olaruwaju Suleiman, at a closing of a special legislative reporting program by the Institute. National Assembly correspondent Abdullahi Aminu reports.
The training is part of effort by the National Institute for Legislative and Democratic Studies to ensure smooth transition from the traditional way of documenting proceedings and other legislative engagements through the use of information and communications technology techniques. It was a methodology employed by the National Assembly management, which begins with its staff and others from 7 states of the country. The idea is to equip them with requisite knowledge to perform in accordance with global best practices.
I needed it highly so that I can be able to perform effectively and efficiently.
I believe we are going to do a perfect work
and produce a perfect answer for the public to see.
We are going to put this knowledge we've learned into use to improve the performance of the legislature.
The skills acquired are expected to enhance productivity and quality of various engagements by the legislative staff.
Let the impact be felt by your colleagues. Let the impact be felt by your employer. Let God bless your knowledge so that you can put that knowledge to bear on the development of this country.
With the development of legislation and stability in the democracy, this field will become a very attractive field.
Parliamentary reporting and modern writing skills, elements of constitutional law and lawmaking process in Parliament formed part of the program. In Abuja, Abdullahi Aminu, NTA News.
To xenophobic attack matters arising. The days of apartheid in South Africa recorded strong voices that included Nigeria, which helped the country in its liberation struggle. But what has happened to history in the face of xenophobic attacks, especially on Nigerians? Why is xenophobia so prevalent in South Africa? And what is the position of international laws on this? Over to Talato Ezeriki for answers.
Nigeria and South Africa have had a long bilateral cordial relationship expected to be consolidated, but the increase in the spate of xenophobic attacks on foreigners, in particular Nigerians, could threaten this relationship, analysts say.
The South Africans had properly educated on the history and how the fellow African nations fought for them in their fight for independence, they wouldn't be doing what they're doing now.
You need wisdom to handle it. That's number one thing.
It has been observed that the spate of xenophobic attacks is fast becoming a norm in South Africa, as the locals, at slight provocation, vent their anger on foreign nationals who they accuse of taking their jobs, causing crimes, and having vintage positions. This development is, however, condemned by the South African government, even though there are speculations of compromise by traditional rulers and the police. Many have therefore frowned at the recent xenophobic attacks that started in March this year. Nigeria, as a big brother, is handling the matter diplomatically in order not to compromise bilateral relations.
The African Union should up its game. And we have expected the African Union to come out strongly in sanctioning South Africa in several ways.
Even in the past few months, there has been continuous riots and demonstrations in South African communities against lack of social and basic amenities. And that is what at times snowballed into xenophobia attack.
For others, the need for South African citizens to pursue developmental path in the continent and align with its president's stand to protect the rights of every Nigeria and other foreign nationals in the country.
We have had agreements with bilateral agreements, multilateral agreements on this issue of xenophobia and like the Banjul Charter. So the government now is ready to take definitive action.
When you have a conflict like this between two of the most important African countries, it is not in the interest of anyone to inflame the situation and the worsening. The right thing to do is to de-escalate and all seek for a solution.
It is generally agreed that Africans must continue to speak one language of unity, peace and progress for the overall interest of all. Talat Ezerike, NTA News.
And the recent signing into law of the 11-year-old Nigeria Correctional Service Bill has been applauded by stakeholders in Nigeria criminal justice system and some members of the general public. Guests on NTA program Good Morning Nigeria are of the opinion that the reform will not only help to decongest the prisons, but will also serve as a correctional and rehabilitation center for offenders. Alika Akwanachirua reports.
Yes, Nigerian Correctional Service, previously known as Prison Service, has been heavily criticized for overcrowding and poor living conditions. The guests on Good Morning Nigeria maintained that for the arts to fulfill its aim of rehabilitating and reintegrating of offenders into the society, modern educational and training facilities must be provided.
We must be thinking about expanding the role and the capability of the Ministry of Social Welfare
creating correctional service department in that ministry that will link up with the correctional services, non-custodial services within the prison, such that they can then contribute to the non-custodial services in supervision, in